So, welcome to the Classcipe PD Collective event. Classcipe is a New Zealand based company aiming to create a global community for educators and learners to share their knowledge and experiences with each other. With us, you can create your unit plan and tasks more easily and customize your template with accurate content recommendations. Our platform function includes interactive slides, customized templates, online, offline, and hybrid learning functions, managing classroom, co-teach, instant feedback, and many more. You can create your own PD content, conduct live feedback sessions, and become a workshop facilitator. You can use the free resources in our library and contribute to it as well. Do follow us on our social media to receive more information and updates. Moving on to the issuance of certificates, we have two types of certificates for this event. First is the certificate of attendance. The certificate of attendance will be issued to them who are attending the live session uninterrupted till the end. Second, certificate of participation. The workshop will end with a post session activity given by the workshop facilitator. Once you complete the activity and upload your evidence, you will be eligible for the same. We will be sending you the platform navigation and submission details via email after the session. The feedback form will be sent to the chat box. You need to fill up and submit in order to get the certificate. Also, note that we take 14 working days to issue certificates. Now, let me welcome our esteemed workshop facilitator, Mr. Jason Reagin. Jason Reagin is an experienced educator and workshop facilitator based in Beijing, China. He has more than 25 years of experience in education, primarily in the field of design at the middle school and high school levels. He is very passionate about creating educational content and has held several positions within the IB program. He is the founder of the Design Cast podcast, which has covered over 20,000 episodes and is listened to in over 110 countries. He brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise to the field of education and is considered a leading expert on the latest trends, techniques, and best practices. Very warm welcome, Jason. Over to you.
Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. Good day. It's great to be here, and I am looking forward to learning from you and with you during this session. And so let's just get started because I know you're here to be part of this. Before I even share the screen, I want you to know this is an interactive sort of session. So I hope you're ready to learn together and to have a few laughs and some fun, hopefully. So here we go. I'm going to share. All right. So this is a topic that I am particularly passionate about. One thing as a design educator in my background, I saw students in a different way than some teachers get to see them. I got to see students in ways that maybe students are hands-on learners who don't have an opportunity to do that as often. And so I was able to see in many ways the best sides of students. I also understand that individualized learning and personalized learning pathways are, I think, essential. And I think as we emerge post-pandemic, I'm in China, so we're closer to post-pandemic than most people. I think that, but so we're opening up very quickly. But so I just want to share that passion with you and a framework that you can use tomorrow or Monday or whenever you're back in school to begin to help your students even more. And so if you attended my session back in the fall, we did a very brief overview of this, and today is an opportunity to look at it in a little bit more detail. So again, thank you everyone at Classcipe for the opportunity to be here. And thank you so much for allowing me to share my passions. So just again, very quickly, this is year 25 for me in education. I'm from the United States, but I've worked in Bermuda, which is a very, very small island, 600 miles from anywhere in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. And you may know it mostly from the Bermuda Triangle, but it's the northern tip of the triangle. So that's one way you can remember where it's at. I'm currently in China. This is my 11th year in the past 25 years of overseas in education, and I also worked for 5 years in South Korea. And my master's degree is actually in what we call technological studies. And so it is what design has become. It's what we might used to call technology ed, or it wasn't ICT. It was more of the design and technology or shop sort of education or manual arts. And then I've been working in IB schools since 2002 and have been running workshops and visits and things since 2008. And so, again, thank you so much for introducing my podcast as well. And I'm going to share a little bit more about that towards the end. So, if I say to you, what does Universal Design for Learning mean, or UDL? Even if you've never heard it before, which is perfectly normal. But by reading those words, what do you think that means? And so on this slide is an opportunity for you to interact with me. There are places where you can put comments. And so I would like for you to comment on the slide on what you think UDL, or Universal Design for Learning means. So if you can just click within the slide window and leave your comment of what you think it is, I would really appreciate that. This is just like when we're in our own classroom, isn't it? Got that wait time for things to start to work. All right. A framework to improve and optimize teaching. Yep, absolutely. Unit plan frame. Sure, absolutely. Removing barriers for all types of learners. I like that. Yes. Those barriers that we constructed. So hopefully we can tear them down. Different types of learners, not subject. Perfect. Oh, thank you for adding that not subject specific part. That's often overlooked. So thank you for sharing that. Wow, these are good. All right. Ranjit, thank you for that. Yes, a framework for creating instructional. Yeah, accessible to all learners. Yes. I'm noticing a trend about less barriers and more accessibility. So that's fantastic. EPOP to succeed. Absolutely. These are great. Wow, you guys should be teaching this. You don't even need me to be here. All right, we'll go for one more minute and then we'll continue on. But thank you so much for interacting with this. This is fantastic.
Jason, there are some reflections in the chat as well, Zoom chat.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, you can
Great.
just go through that as well.
Okay. I'll work. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Sahili, thank you. Okay, perfect. Yes, removing barriers. Okay, right. Okay, wonderful. Yes, I'm seeing a lot of the same. The philosophy is very similar. Thank you so much. Maximum. Okay, maximum accessibility with minimum barriers. I do love the way you said that. Thank you for that. All right. Okay. So let's continue on. Thank you for doing that, guys. I do appreciate that, and interacting with me that way. As you know, this is just like in school where no, it just sort of we have to be flexible. So thank you guys so much. So the UDL guidelines that we're going to talk about today are coming from a place called CAST, CAST.org. And I'm going to link you to that in a few minutes. You don't have to go there yet, but it's an international organization which uses research to base its decisions and its guidelines on. And not only the research, but there's been multiple books, lots of webinars, lots of courses that have been taught using this framework. It originally began in higher education, in tertiary education, for students who were struggling in college after high school. And so that's where the origins of this framework come from. But there is no reason why it can't be used for everything below that as well. So when we start to interact with this in a moment, you guys will see what I'm talking about. So CAST is where we've got that. And don't worry, I've got lots of links for this for you later. You don't have to stress and run out and find it yet. So we've got that. So the guidelines are broken down into 3 parts. Okay, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about the progression through those in a moment, but you need to remember the highest level, which I'll point out to you in a moment, they're called principles. So these are the things, these are the domains that we want to focus on. There are three main principles, which I'll share with you in just a moment. Um, Underneath the principles are some guidelines or guiding statements. And then from there, you have what we call checkpoints. And traditionally, these checkpoints would be things that we might think of as standards indicators or as strands within a rubric. So think of the principles as a much larger umbrella. And then the guidelines would be the larger sort of standard or benchmark. And then you would have your indicators, which we call checkpoints underneath. Okay. So that's how the standards are broken down. So I wanted to make it as clear as possible because it took me a few minutes to kind of think through and look at it because it's all in text, and I wanted to make sure that I understood it, so therefore I could share that with you. So it starts with the principles, it moves into the guidelines, and then there's checkpoints under that, and I'll display those for you in a moment. So the different areas, these are the goals of the guideline structure. We first look at access. And when we talk about the access, that's the lowest level of each of these principles. Okay. The lowest level. It should hopefully be the thing that all of the students are able to do when we begin. So the access level is the most basic level of the principle. Okay. That's the most basic. Then the next level is build. So you've got this build here. And so you can look, I've highlighted these action words to help you understand what we're looking for in these areas. So access, when we think about, let's say, a student who is struggling in school and we want to begin putting a plan in place for them, access is going to be our first starting point. Okay. That allows the guidelines to, suggest ways to increase by perception and physical activity. Okay, so those are the two main things any teacher hopefully is able to do this quite quickly when a student enters the room and is struggling, or who needs extra challenge and who needs an extra level of um, of extended support. Then build would be the next level. So you've got your access here, you go a little deeper, we're looking at the build where we're looking at effort and persistence, because unfortunately, when students struggle, one of the first things they leave behind is their effort because they think it's not worth it. So building is where we start to build in capacity for students to persevere through these challenges. Language and symbols often can be a struggle for our students. And so we start to talk about that when we build meaning there, and then expression and communication. Then is when we start moving into more of a self-directed situation where learners are able to take control of their own learning and internalize. Okay. So being able to use these access and build tools that we're talking about, and they start being able to pull them up in unfamiliar situations, being able to pull them up in their own the way they perceive situations, and to be able to act upon that. They may not always act correctly, but they're learning the skills and the techniques to use within each situation or circumstance. And as you can see, the words, these command terms, if you will, in the internalize are much more complex: self-regulation, comprehension, executive function. Okay. Those are the three structures with the ultimate goal. The goal part is what we want all of our users and students to have, and we want them to be resourceful and knowledgeable, strategic and goal directed, purposeful and motivated. I'm an adult who's been doing this a long time, and I want to be able to do this myself. And so obviously these are our goal, and they're relative, of course, to the age and the space of the students. But this is how the structure of the guidelines work. You start with your access level, which is the most basic, and they move down this structure, this continuum. Okay. We'll have time in a moment to explore these. So these are the three big principles that I mentioned before, that we start with principles and then we work our way down. The three principles of UDL are this: engagement, representation, and action and expression. And again, this is brain-based research. And as you can see, they've actually gone in and colored the part of the brain that they're trying to access with this particular principle. And you can see here, it's an affective network. The why we're learning this. How many times does a student ask, why do we need to know this? It's extremely important that they do understand why they they're learning this, why they're knowing this. Okay, the representation content heavy, it's the what of the learning. And then the action and the expression is hopefully going to be, which is more in depth, that's the how. Okay. As you can see here, this is just a bit more about each of these principles. The ultimate goal of UDL is to develop expert learners. Okay. So this is the goal of CAST, and the goal of the UDL principles and guidelines is to develop expert learners. Okay. Enough of that. Let's get into the fun part where we're starting to explore and experience this for ourselves. So I've gone and labeled these so you would know what we're talking about. So as I mentioned here, there's the engagement level. Engagement is the principle. The guidelines are here. So we've got recruiting ideas, sustaining effort and persistence, and self-regulation. And then the checkpoints. And I've color coded them so that you can see where they fall. Okay, so recruiting interest has got these three different strands or checkpoints. Sustaining effort and persistence, it's got these four checkpoints. And then self-regulation have these three. Now, this slide hopefully has an icon for you to click on to go to the CAST website, which would allow you to start to explore these in more detail. I'm going to actually open it up to show you. Okay. And Sahili, can you tell me, are you able to see the new page I'm on now? Is that
Yes,
okay?
yes.
Okay,
Hmm.
perfect. So this is the CAST guidelines. Okay. And it's a separate part of the CAST website. And as you can see, it actually goes in and explains the origins behind the research. You can download a really large, it goes through and it explains what these different guidelines are. Every bit of this is connected. Okay. So here I go to engagement. I can click engagement and it will take me to the engagement portion of the guidelines, which is really nice. So here's what I would like for you to do, please. I would like for you to look at which principle, this principle, choose one of the guidelines that you find that you could use on your next class or in school the next time you're in school, and then one of the checkpoints. So let's say I like the recruiting ideas and the minimize threats and distractions portion. I would go here to the, you can see recruiting ideas is here. I could click there, or I can go straight into the checkpoint. And I click on the checkpoint and it gives me information about what kinds of things I can do for my students and further research on the brain-based portion of this particular checkpoint. So as you can see, it's extremely wealthy when it comes to information. And I would like to give everyone about 5 minutes to select one guideline and one of the checkpoints under it to explore a little bit. And then on the next slide, I'm going to have you share a bit of what you've discovered. Okay. So if everyone could head on over to the link that's in this page and find your checkpoint that you're drawn to. Okay. I'm going to give you some agency and some choice here and some autonomy. So if you could go and choose a checkpoint and read about it, we're going to have a moment to share in a minute. So I'm going to set my timer for 5 minutes. Okay. Does everyone understand? I'll actually stop sharing so it's easier for you, and I'll reshare in a moment. Okay. Thank you, everyone. I hope you all have had an opportunity to have a look at that website, which, of course, is very, very resourceful. And so on this slide here, if you could take what you would normally put, let's say, in like the chat box and create a quick comment or chat here, comment um, on the checkpoint that you investigated and maybe some ideas. I saw there was a few already being listed in the chat. If you can put them here on the slides, just click anywhere on the slide and it will allow you to start typing. Okay. So just click anywhere on the slide and you can start typing your ideas for where you could take that checkpoint. And oh, wonderful. Thank you. Already got some here. Thank you. Fatima, I appreciate that. Self-reflection is always good. You're correct, Ashika. Thank you. As adults, we don't do enough of that sometimes. Oh, yes. Minimize threats and distractions, create an accepting and supportive classroom climate. Absolutely. Um, thank you for sharing that. Okay, can I just give you maybe 30 more seconds and then we'll move on to the next one. Thank you guys. Thank you. I hope that you found some value in connecting with that website. Dahlia, you are absolutely correct. If you are in a school that teaches using the IB programs and frameworks, the ATL skills are very, very similar to this. And I think a really great project could be taking these checkpoints and finding a way to weave them into your ATL program, your ATL tracking or mapping at the school, because many of them overlap. So I think that's a great idea. Yes, Lloyd. Oh, Lloyd, thank you. It's great to see you here. Thank you, man. Absolutely. Self-directed learners, and that's the wave of the future. That's the way we're going. So great. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. Okay, so great comments. Thank you for that. And I appreciate you sharing that. Are there one or two people who want to unmute and share anything they feel particularly passionate about when it comes to this sort of thing with the engagement? I purposely put this guy here crying because I know how he feels sometimes when it comes to doing your best for your students. So it's okay if everyone is still working. That's totally fine. Okay. So let's just move on because I want to have time for us to interact towards the end. And so a good activity in your own school and in your own, let's say, school group, or even in your own subject department, would be to look at these various principles and guidelines and see where you're able to work with students on this. Okay. So the next principle is representation. Okay. And this is where I was talking earlier. It's sort of the next level where we're looking at languages and symbols and perceptions and comprehension, which are a little bit deeper into what we're doing. You can see here there's actually more checkpoints in this particular area of the guidelines. There's more of them. I can see a lot of the language teachers might find ways to use the language and symbols portion a bit more. Here where we've got the vocabulary and symbols and syntax and structure. And this is written, keep in mind, from an English language perspective. So it was developed in North American and UK type university settings. And so it's not taking into account for languages that are maybe more symbolic, like your Chinese, your Thai, your Japanese, that kind of thing, your Korean. So it is something that would very much need to be adapted and modified for the setting that you're in. Okay. And so just keep those things in mind because it does mention symbols. And I think that's the developer's approach to answer when you're in a language, operating in a language which doesn't use the alphanumeric characters. So just keep that in mind, especially if you're a language teacher, that the it's more about the message and the symbol and the meaning behind that. So we're not going to do the same activity here. I want to do it one more time on this next group. So as you can see here, perception, language, and comprehension, they have their own set of checkpoints as well. And so, and then my guy's here crying still again. So this is the one I really want to dig into again. And for this particular activity, I would like for you to leave a very quick video clip of your interpretation of this. And so the link from this takes you directly to the action and expression portion of the website. If you could do again what we did before, choose the guideline and then choose the checkpoint. And so maybe it's a guide appropriate goal setting is one that all the teachers could use. Facilitate managing information resource. There's a lot of different executing functioning things here. And so what I'd like for you to do is if you could please pick one of these checkpoints, have a quick look at it on the website, and then you can record either an audio clip, you could make a little graphic, or you could make a video clip and leave it here as a media option. I wanted to try out some of the features. So let's try this one. So for this one, I'm going to give you 5 minutes again. Okay. And keep in mind what I'll do is I'm going to mute because you may want to record yourself doing the little audio thing. So I'm going to mute myself unless there's questions. If there's a question, you can pop it in the chat and I'll respond by text. Okay. So 5 minutes and then we'll share what we've learned. There's my timer. I hit it so quickly. You probably didn't hear it. So wonderful. And it's fine if you have not managed to finish putting your media there for me. There's a few already there on the slide. So thank you for sharing those with me. I wanted you to see how we can use various ways to share this information via the Classcipe interface. And so thank you for sharing that with me. So basically, it's one of these things where, because I've had several messages about how we would measure the checkpoints. And I mentioned to you earlier about the approaches to learning skills if you're in an IB style school. If you're not, it would be these like soft skill type things that you would measure that don't always get some kind of grade. They might be given a proficiency level, or it might just simply be a way to keep track of student progress, right? So it might be organizational skills or executive functioning skills, like we mentioned here before. And so some of these checkpoints are much, much easier to create concrete steps for than others. Okay. And so I think it's going to be highly dependent upon the school that you're in, the kinds of students that you teach, and their ages and the situation and that sort of thing. So you're going to need to be highly contextualized when you're looking at how to measure the checkpoints. But if I were to give an example, I'm going to look at this one here. I'm going to draw it because I didn't realize I could draw on here. Okay. Right here. Let's see. I'm going to use the pencil. Okay. Right here. Use multiple media for communication. Okay. And in this situation, we're a Microsoft Teams school. So it might be that the student is able to communicate with me through a Teams chat, is able to reply to a message in a Teams channel, is able to send me an audio message, a video message, is able to use slides, those sorts of things are ways, or is able to email and to write clearly. There's so many different ways we could measure that, and it all depends on the age group and in the setting that you're in. So I think there is a way to answer it, but it's complex and it's very contextualized. And so I think at the end of the workshop, I'll share with you what our next steps are, and that's probably going to help quite a bit when it comes to that. So, all right. Okay. Oh, here we go. Sorry, I hadn't seen that part. All right, wonderful. So thank you everyone for sharing. And again, I have my guy here crying, and there's a bit of symbolism here because not only is he crying, the background is the same color as his tears. And so my idea was that he's he's filled the background with his angst. So thank you all for being part of this and sharing this with me. So um I want to take just a few minutes to talk about some resources that you can use for this and what our next steps could be if you're interested. So first of all, as we mentioned earlier, I have a podcast that talks about all kinds of things, but coincidentally and planned, I interviewed Diane Blackburn, who is a universal design for learning expert who's based in the United Kingdom. And you may have heard of her if you're part of her Facebook group where she talks about UDL. She's worked with lots of schools in Europe and the Middle East, I think even some in Asia, all about universal design for learning. She has a passion, such as myself, when it comes to making sure all of our students meet all of the learning needs that we're able to meet their learning needs and they're able to meet their learning goals. And so that episode has just gone live for you to listen to. So the link through the page is you can listen to it within a browser. The QR code there at the top is an Apple Podcast link that you can go to, but you can just search for my website. I mean, for my my podcast anywhere, and the latest episode is this one. So I did that on purpose. I knew I was going to be doing this workshop, and I knew that she was one of my guests, so I made sure to plan it so that it came out very timely in this. And so she goes into more depth with some of the success stories she's had working with schools and in districts and in school systems, implementing UDL principles across the school system. And so she'll be a great person to connect with. She has a website as well, so you can connect with her, but you can listen to our conversation on this page here. Okay. Now, at the beginning, it was mentioned that there's two kinds of certificates. One is a certificate of attendance, and one is a certificate of participation. And so in order to receive your participation certificate, what we would like for you to do, what I would like for you to do, is to create a task. It does not have to be a massive task. It could be a very quick exit ticket. It could be a quick choice board. It does not matter, but it needs to look at the various checkpoints within the UDL framework and guidelines, and it needs to be based around that. So maybe one of your checkpoints had to do with language and symbols and being able to, switch between modes or something of that nature, or the one I mentioned before, the communications, the various modes of communication. We'd like for you to create that task and attach it to this slide. Okay. So what you would do, you will have access to these slides after, and what you'll do is you'll click in the slide, and it will leave a space for you to upload media, as we said before. And Sahili, correct me if I'm not saying everything, or correct me if I've
Yes,
said it
saying
wrong,
everything
but we're going to use
absolutely
slide
correct.
18. Perfect. Thank you. We've been rehearsing, so I'm glad to know that I'm doing it
Yes.
correctly. And so I would like for you to upload your task to this slide, and it will then collect them for me. In addition to that is a living, breathing Wakelet collection where I've put lots of resources that I invite you to add any resources you find or want to share with me in this open community collection on Wakelet. And if you've never used Wakelet before, feel free to connect with me, and I'll be happily take you through the process. It's as easy as clicking on the link or snapping the QR code and you're in. So this is the invite to collaborate link. And so that's where I would like to, future wise, any place you want, any things you find or anything I find, I'm going to upload there and share with the community. So if you were in the session from the fall, it's the same collection. And so please feel free to connect that way and put your any resources that you find that you would like to connect with there. So that's what our task is for you all. I want to take a few questions if there's any questions to do with the task or to do with UDL before we begin to wrap things up. Let me
Also,
swing over to the
one
chat.
one more thing that
Yes.
we have sent the feedback form in the
I
chat
see it.
box. Yeah, so please fill it up, and it will help us to issue the certificates for you. And also, we can have our Q&A session now. So feel free to unmute and ask questions
Yes.
to us. Yeah. Also, regarding this navigation, regarding the task, how to upload the task and everything, that we will be sending you in a detailed mail after the session.
Hello, a very
Okay.
good morning, Mr. Jason. I'd like to
morning.
ask something. So first
Okay.
of all, okay, I would really like to appreciate the way you designed that whole thing of engagement, the
Okay.
principle, the guidelines, and the checkpoint. I think it will give us a little more clarity to work around that.
Yeah.
So I belong to a PYP school, and I want we are also working on the UDL framework. I would like to ask now, in PYP, evidencing is very important and documenting is very important. So when we write our planners and all, okay, where should we actually put this? How should we make it visible in our planners? Like if we want to show it to the IB team, so
Sure.
where do we put it very visibly in our planners? Should it be a part of our learning experiences or the assessments that we are doing? So, if you can just throw little
Great
light.
question. No, that's a fabulous question, and both are correct. It could be either in your,
because
it
you
could be
started doing that now, it
yes,
I just got a little clarity in my head that where should I,
yes,
like when we do it with the team,
right, of
like so
course,
somewhere also
yes,
I found that the further breakdown of the checkpoints, the tasks that they have written on the cast org, we are doing
yes,
it somewhere or the other. Like when I saw action
right,
and expression, we give them a lot of choices to work
right,
with media of their choice. But the only
yes,
challenge with us is that how do we make it visible on the planner? Like for example, we are going to now head towards our evaluation visit.
yes,
So they want
sure,
to see it somewhere, but where do we put it
sure,
exactly on our planners and make it very explicit?
yeah. So my expertise falls in the MYP and higher level, but I do know I've visited PYP schools as well. I think it's less important where it is, but that it's present. And so as long as it's consistent from class to class and unit to unit, so I think the best place is going to be in your learning experiences,
Yes.
and then you want to codify where you put it. So if you put that the task is this, and then maybe have a UDL in brackets next to it or
Exactly.
something, or color
I
code
was
it
thinking
so that you are able to identify it. Yes.
I was thinking the same. I think we just create one document only like that, the way you have designed into 3 parts.
Yes.
And then within that, we plug in our learning experiences. So we have like a working document which says how do we meet the needs of the learners in the classroom. I was just, now trying to
That's great.
get
I know,
ideas together.
exactly. Well, and if you do a document like that, that's a master document, it's easy to make one change one time versus going into every person's unit planner. So it might be that it's a document that lives in a different portion of your written curriculum that's easy to change one time instead of having to change it every time. Right. So I think probably maybe have your own plan that's a little bit, a map that's a little separate from that.
Yeah,
even.
it's actually going to be like a mapping across the grades.
Yep.
Okay.
It would be just like mapping the ATLs. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're
so
very
much.
welcome. Very welcome.
Jason, we have a question from Miss Dalia in the chat.
Yes. Okay.
She's asking for the level of mastery of those skills.
Level of mastery. Absolutely. Dahlia, thank you for that question. And it is a really good question. It's very meaningful. I think when it comes to levels, it again is highly contextualized to your situation, because an expert level in one place could be a intermediate level somewhere else. So I think as long as you and your school have an understanding of what those levels mean, whether it's proficient or mastery or teaching or whatever capability you want to call it, um, and how you assess them, it really is up to you. And so I think you're going to look a lot to what happens when they finish school. Where do you want them to be? And then you backward map that for your assessment and how you do that. I hope that answers your question, but I think that's probably the best way for you to start. And it does require community agreement and understanding about where those levels of mastery live. So that's a great question. Thank you for asking. Yes, Dahlia, it is a lengthy process. It's long term. You're absolutely right. This is not meant to be something we do tomorrow and it's permanent. It's meant to be an ongoing developmental process. Absolutely. All right. Okay. So I know we're getting close on time, so I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So I would love to keep in touch with you. Okay. And so please feel free to any of these social media outlets you're welcome to jump on. I've been redoing my YouTube channel, so please feel free to swing by and check that out, because I've got lots of videos on there, but also a lot of the podcasts have been put in into YouTube, so you can listen to them through podcasts through YouTube. At the top here, this link here, the zap.bio, it actually has all these things included. So if you just go to this one link, it takes you to all the others. But you're welcome to connect with me. I love to connect. Moving forward, there will, if there's a desire and interest, we could be looking at more specialized workshops in the future to talk about individual situations in maybe your school with the need for UDL frameworks. And so if there's a need for that or an interest in that, if you can reach out to Classcipe and Sahili, and even to me, we can look at arranging workshops in the future, moving to more of a paid workshop, small fee situation where we can be highly personalized
Yes.
in the approach. And so, Sahili, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, well, you have explained everything correctly. Yes, I think
Okay.
that's the next plan for the session where we
Mm,
explore more
mm,
about the conceptual understanding of a particular topic. So yeah, we
right.
will be informing you about that
Mm,
whenever we are planned. And yeah, thank you everyone for joining. And Jason, thank you so much for conducting the
thank
workshop so
you.
well. Also, just another thing, our next session is at 2 p.m. IST on ways to differentiate professional development service, will be
Mm,
facilitated by Ms. Asnaha Farin. So yeah, you can enroll for that as well. It will start at 2 p.m. IST. Thank you everyone, and we have sent
mm,
our Facebook page link in the chat, so you can join the group as well, so you stay updated with our announcements and events, everything. Thank you everyone. In case you have anything to ask, you can ask. Or yeah, and
mm.
also please remember to fill the feedback form. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.